Great Britain is back on a growth path after Brexit. Nobody is talking about the Brexit damage anymore, but retail is suffering, and there are still conflict-prone construction sites. Corona easing new freedoms, increasing consumer mood. The temporary end of the lockdown against the pandemic is fueling new optimism on the British Isles. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is not the only one to spread confidence. Economic forecasts also give hope for a stable upswing. The signs are good for a recovery in the second half of the year. The gross domestic product plummeted by around 10% in 2020. The Bank of England is now predicting the strongest economic growth since World War II in 2021. The pre-crisis level had been reached by the end of the year, they say. That sounds really exuberant, because the corona pandemic and Brexit pushed the British economy back into the red at the beginning of the year. GDP shrank by 1.5% in the first quarter, as the ONS Statistics Office has announced. Accordingly, economic output is still 8.7% below the pre-crisis level of the fourth quarter of 2019. In addition, nobody really knows what the exact effects of the implementation of Brexit will be. In the first quarter, the first since the regulated exit from the customs union and internal market, the figures do not bode well for trade. For the first time since 1997, when the relevant statistics were drawn up, imports from non-EU countries exceeded those from the European Union. The ONS was unable to judge whether the shift was due to a short-term nature or to longer-term adjustments to supply chains. Bureaucracy and costs are there as well. A survey by the German-British Chamber of Commerce these days, after the ratification of the trade agreement between Brussels and London, showed a more optimistic mood than in autumn, when a hard Brexit was still looming. Every third company surveyed is planning higher investments today. That's 5% in 2020. Only 1 in 10 less, that was 20% in 2020, and 44% even want to hire new employees. However, the obvious fact is that the implementation of Brexit has led to further slumps in sales and earnings due to additional administrative costs, customs duties and taxes, and increased transport costs. According to a survey by the consulting firm KPMG and the British Chamber of Commerce in Germany, among companies that are largely based in Germany, 1 in 6 companies has therefore completely stopped foreign trade with Great Britain. 22% wanted to switch to new suppliers outside the German-British corridor, and a further 13% are replacing imports with local suppliers. How this will be reflected on the British side is not yet fully foreseeable. There, the government has once again postponed the new bureaucratic requirements for imports. And yet a lot becomes more complicated. An overview of some of the tricky Brexit issues is what I have for you today. First is declining EU exports. The higher bureaucratic hurdles and costs in trade due to Brexit have at least not harmed the exports of French wine growers. The leading suppliers of British wine drinkers have experience in international trade, and apparently they have set up large interim storage facilities on the island. Overall, EU trade with customers across the English Channel fell more sharply than expected in the first quarter of 2021. The British Statistical Office reported a decline in imports from the EU of 13.9%, almost twice as much as predicted. British exports fell 7.5%. After all, there was a slight improvement in the automotive sector in March. And there's unpredictable border traffic. As in the last-minute border traffic between Gibraltar and Spain, many imponderables remain. The uncertainty weighs on the relationship, as the survey by the British-German Chamber of Commerce shows. Almost 2/3 of the companies surveyed expect more problems for their business from trade barriers and customs formalities in the next 12 months than from ongoing travel restrictions due to the corona crisis. Despite the trade pact with duty-free or tariff-free movement of goods, every third company fears legal uncertainties. Many consequences are drawn from this. 41% have changed their supply chains because of Brexit. The main reasons cited were regulatory uncertainty, higher costs, and the desire for diversification. And there's food. In the British Stilton, the cheese specialty of the same name is rolled through the streets in parades on the May holiday. Cheese exports from the island, like all dairy products, have plummeted. Milk and cream exports fell 97% year-on-year in February. Cheese by 65% to a volume of just £14.5 million. It is proving to be a major trade hurdle that London and the EU have failed to align their phytosanitary rules regardless of the trade deal. That remains a construction site. Because of the food controls, which costs time, money and red tape, a total of 40% less British food and beverages were exported to the EU in February. The industry has so far delivered more than half of its total exports, valued at just under £15 billion to the EU member states. And then there's the Northern Ireland focal point. The mood between Protestants and Catholics is heated because Northern Ireland sees itself as the loser of Brexit. The British region is also hardest hit by the potential for conflict around sanitary and phytosanitary standards. It exports 3/4 of its agricultural and food products, especially meat. The sector is its largest industry. Northern Ireland does not have a hard border with the EU, so the border with the Republic of Ireland remains open, but trade is not smooth, not even with the British. The customs border is now in the Irish Sea, which means that many goods can be checked and some can no longer be delivered at all. First Minister Arlene Foster, who expected the British government to renegotiate the Northern Ireland Protocol to the post-Brexit trade agreement, resigned. She had used the riots as leverage. And then there's the neighbourhood dispute. Ireland's ferry ports are thriving after Brexit. Superficially, the Republic is benefiting from Brexit through more intensive relations with mainland Europe, which is reflected in an 80% increase in the volume of trade. However, fishing and agriculture, as important employers in rural areas, also harbour potential for conflict, for which Great Britain was often the only and most important trading partner in the European internal market. According to official statistics, 35% less food and beverages were delivered to the British in the first 2 months of 2021 than at the beginning of 2018. Other export markets were unable to compensate for the loss. And of course, at the moment, there's a lot of noise in the English Channel. The Channel Island of Jersey surprised French fishermen with restrictions on fishing licenses. Those responsible used a supposed grey area and prescribed the fishermen to catch only certain types of fish. Thereupon, a fleet of cutters chucked into the port of Saint-Helier to blockade. The dispute got so high that France threatened to cut the power to the island, and both neighbours sent patrol boats from the navy. The EU Commission accused Great Britain of breaking the trade agreement through unilateral restrictions. Again. Downing Street countered that the Jersey authorities were right. For the time being, the French cutters withdrew after the demonstration of strength, but the British Navy remains on standby. And there's the part about the EU citizens in the UK. There was criticism from the EU when overzealous border officials arrested around 30 EU citizens from Germany, Italy, Greece and Spain on entry and held them for days, and it's even more now. In this consular area, British border officials are entitled to refuse entry to EU citizens if they have reasonable grounds to suspect that they want to work without a work visa. Because there is no longer any freedom of movement in the EU internal market, visas are now required in many cases for cross-border services. The UK is facing a skills shortage in many areas, experts warn. On the other hand, companies see a large number of problems to be faced when it comes to issues such as employee secondment and financial services. And those are once again just a short list of the problems that have to be dealt with at the moment, and that list will grow. I'm absolutely sure about this. We, in many cases, are still in transition periods. We still have not reached full Brexit. And if you want to stay informed, please subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate that. And of course, if you watch my videos and you like them, please give them a thumbs up. I'll see you in my next video. Auf Wiedersehen.